Every day I spend my time drinking wine, feeling fine, waiting here to find the sign that I can understand. Yes, I am.
Hey, what's up, YouTube? This is Swiss Army Dan coming at you with another Swiss Army knife video. And that's a little bit of Rod Stewart talking about drinking wine. We're going to talk about corkscrews today, people. I had a comment, request, to kind of discuss the evolution of different tools on Swiss Army knives, and I thought corkscrew is a good one to talk about. So let's talk about corkscrews today. Um, I think the earliest corkscrew I have, I really wish I had ones before this, like I really want like a really early, standard officer's knife or Spartan. As early as I can get it, I guess would be awesome. But especially one with the cutout for the awl is like kind of one of my grail Swiss Army knives. Um, anyway, this is a camper from the 60s, and you'll see it has this 5-turn fluted corkscrew here, which is pretty cool. And as far as I know, what I can tell from all the Swiss Army knives that I've seen, they stopped the 5-turn corkscrew by 1973. Because you know what? I'll tell you what I've never seen is a Swiss Army knife, you know, with let me grab one here that has a spear point small blade. Where's just a regular Swiss Army knife? Here we go. A spear point small blade with a 5-turn corkscrew. And I think most people kind of agree that uh, clip point blade went out in 73. And I've never seen a knife, with a 5-turn and the spear point, unless it's maybe like a repair or something where someone sent in an older knife and then they replaced that smaller blade with a spear point. But as far as I know, that 5-turn corkscrew for the Vicks went out with that small blade. The best I can tell. If someone has more information or thinks I'm wrong, please give me the link because I would be really interested to know. But yeah, again, there's that 5-turn that you'll see on the older kind of vintage knives like 73 and before. You'll see that it does have this kind of this line, this fluted corkscrew, which I guess is mostly for decoration. I've heard some people complaining about like it getting dirty easier, and I guess it does kind of turn black after a while. I think it's kind of cool. I prefer the ones that have the little fluted corkscrew. Um, but not all of them do. Even these old ones aren't fluted. So it's not a surefire way to date your knife with the fluted. I mean, if you see the fluted corkscrew, you know it's going to be pre 91 because they did stop putting this line, this fluted corkscrew in there by 91. And that's a soft date. Could be like a year or two after that. Um, but here's a old champion, and I think this box is really cool. It's an old box from the 70s, and you see this champion has the aluminum tip tweezers, and it'll have that fluted corkscrew. But you see, it's 70s. It has the aluminum tip tweezers and a 4-turn corkscrew, and of course the small blade is spear point on this. So that corkscrew, you'll see them use pretty much a variation of this all the way up until 91. There's going to be some that you can barely see the flute in it or the little line, and some it's going to be super deep and pronounced. And I think they probably sourced them from a few different areas. I know they did get some corkscrews from France for a long time, and I think Victorinox and Wenger both use the same distributor from time to time too. Maybe not always. Um, Here is a pre 85 um, 84 millimeter climber, and you see it has it's not a fluted corkscrew in that. So it shows you they're definitely not all, because this is definitely an early 80s or, yeah, probably an early 80s knife, and it doesn't have a fluted corkscrew. Talk about Vengers real quick. They also did the 5-turn corkscrew, which is like a vintage kind of feature, but it's not fluted, you see. I'll hold it up to the Victorinox so you can see the two kind of vintage versions of their corkscrews. And there might even be ones that predate this. This is kind of like, I'm talking like that 60s and 70s kind of era here. I'm not real sure when this Wenger is. From what I've read, they phased out their 5-turn corkscrew around 76. Around 1976 is when they went to a 4-turn corkscrew. But it does look pretty groovy, that 5-turn compared to, here's one, a Wenger with a 4-turn. It's kind of cool, when it's on this, smaller 85 millimeter knife. But this is just an old Viking with a little eagle on there. I really dig this knife. It's sweet. And here's a ski loper with that cool, I guess I've been told this is a wax scraping tool. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, these Vengers, they won't have fluted corkscrews. There is kind of like a groove going on, like in this knife. This knife corkscrew. This is a Commander. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a tiny little groove in it. So it's almost like a fluted corkscrew. Here's another Wenger, and you will not see it in that one. It's just smooth. Here is an old, what do we got here? An old Tourist, and it's got a kind of a thin fluted corkscrew too. It's going to be from the 70s. It's got a spear point blade on it. Here's a Wenger. This is probably one of the the later Wengers that came out, maybe late 90s or something, like early 2000s, and it's just smooth. So I mean, I don't know what else I need to say here about these corkscrews. These days, here's like a more modern Huntsman. These days, they're definitely no fluted corkscrew. It's smooth and shiny and pretty consistent on them these days. Not too many variations like you used to see. On these 85 millimeter, I did want to comment, like I think on the economy versions of the knives, they didn't usually use a fluted corkscrew. Like here's what came in that box, and it's this Swiss hiking club. But this one is like, it doesn't have a 90-degree stop. It doesn't have a hole in the reamer punch. So this is going to be like an early 80s kind of knife, but it's smooth, So it just shows you that they didn't always use that fluted corkscrew, especially on the economy ones. Here's like an older Taurus too, same thing going on, it's smooth. But then you have this older Fisherman, 91 millimeter, and it's got a very, pronounced fluted corkscrew. And let's see, this Ranger, this is going to be like a 86 to 91 Ranger, no hook on it, but it does have a 90-degree stop. It does have an inlay instead of the stamp on there, but it's got a super deep fluted corkscrew on it. So I think, I've said all I can about corkscrews. If you have any questions or comments or anything to add, just put that in the comments. I appreciate you guys watching. Remember to be kind to each other. Swiss Army Dan's out of here.